I'm speaking on global obesity epidemic and the prevention strategies. This is one of the lectures that I know students are interested in. I hope you are interested because the things you will learn are not just for the public. You can apply them to yourself and your family. At the end of the lecture, we should all be able to define obesity, know the prevalence, the causes, the consequences, the effect of diet and sedentary lifestyle on obesity. Remember that obesity is, the causation is multifactorial. But as far as this class is concerned, we're interested in nutrition. So that means we're more interested in the effect of diet and sedentary lifestyle on obesity, and then we will try to discuss prevention strategies. So you should be able to recognize those prevention strategies. I would dwell more on the dietary prevention, but I'll mention a few things about other methods of prevention. Obesity is the excess body weight that may impair health. When there is excess body fat to an extent that it can impair health, that's what is referred to as obesity. So this means that the body mass index of someone may not even be as much as 30, which is the limits that has been set to define obesity generally. But for the purpose of this class, since you are training to become experts, we need to know that as soon as excess body fat can impair health, that situation is referred to as obesity. But overweight is excess body weight for a particular height. So that's dependent on just the body height and weight. We'll come to the figures later, but I want us to pick that fact that excess body fat that impairs health, even if the body mass index is not as high as 30, is referred to as obesity. So overweight and obesity are forms of malnutrition. I remember I said this in the first class, that malnutrition is not necessarily undernutrition alone. There are different forms of malnutrition. Undernutrition can even be classified into different groups, including micronutrient deficiency. And then the other side of malnutrition is overweight and obesity, which occurs when people have consumed excess calories or excess nutrients that are converted to fat. It's sad that many people who are obese or overweight are also suffering from eating hunger. So this is the kind of hunger that cannot be seen. They show for face. Micronutrient deficiency is what we refer to as eating hunger. Please get used to that term and be able to speak confidently on eating hunger. Someone is going to take you a lecture, or maybe somebody has already taken you the lecture. Have you had a lecture on micronutrient deficiency? Class rep, please. Okay. So either before now or later, there must be a lecture on micronutrient deficiencies. So you understand eating hunger and the different methods of combating it. Malnutrition generally is a serious public health problem. And like I said in the first class, this serious public health problem in developing countries, the aspect that still bothers us more is the undernutrition, because the prevalence of undernutrition amongst children is still very high. Very close to 50% of children suffer one form of malnutrition or the other. But globally, obesity has taken over globally. So that means in Western countries, they have more problems with obesity than undernutrition. But in Nigeria and other low and middle income countries, we have triple burden of malnutrition, not just double. The underweight, micronutrient deficiencies, and now obesity. So that brings us to triple. But if you want to discuss it as double, then you can say undernutrition and overnutrition or obesity. I also explained to you in this class, and I like to reiterate that obesity in adult life is associated with undernutrition in childhood, starting from the fetal stage. Fetus that is not undernourished is at higher risk of overweight and obesity later. Children who are undernourished are at higher risk of obesity later. So now let's look at the World Health Organization definitions of obesity for adults using body mass index. There are different ways of determining obesity, but a quick one is to use body mass index. So if you want to use body mass index, how do we define obesity? If we are using body mass index, then the classification of nutritional status will be as follows: underweight, less than 18.5, healthy weight 18.5 to 24.9, overweight 25 to 29.9, obese 30 to 39.9, morbid obesity 40 and above, and super obesity greater than 50. But remember what I said earlier, that if for any reason someone has a health challenge, even if the BMI is not yet 30, that person is obese. The definitions of obesity in children now. In children, different methods are used in definition of obesity in children. Different methods are used for determining obesity in children. So this starts from the way we monitor their growth. Since there are different methods, different charts used for growth monitoring, the definition will depend on the particular method in question. There is a World Health Organization chart that is used for 0 to 2 years, children between 0 and 2 years, and there is a CDC growth chart. Sometimes that WHO chart can even extend to children who are 5 years old, 0 to 5 years old. And then there is a CDC. CDC is Center for Disease Control, CDC growth charts. This chart uses body mass index for age on the chart. So the body mass is plotted against the age, and is usually used for children between age 2 and 19 years. So obesity is weight for height greater than 3 standard deviations above the WHO child growth standards median for age below 5 years. So if we are using the WHO charts, like I said, we can use it for children between 0 and 5 years. So if we are using that chart has been formed using many children from different parts of the world, and the standards have been plotted on that card. There's a green type of WHO chart that is very popular. So if you have the opportunity to get to a clinic, you can lay your hands on that green chart. It's called card, but what is on it is a chart. So you can call it chart and you can call it a card. It's usually called Road to Health card or Road to Health chart. So if you ask for Road to Health charts in any clinic, you can lay your hands on. Now you can also check it online. But I have the chart for CDC on this in this presentation. So that is what I intend to use. Just to mention that there are different kind of charts, and there is a WHO chart that is used for children between 0 and 5, and that this chart have been plotted with standards in a way that when weight for height is greater than 3 standard deviation, then that any child that has that can be regarded as obese. And on that chart, the plots of the weight of that child will be well above the 95th percentile. So that chart has been formed in a way that people that are within the normal range will, if you want to plot their weight against their height, the plot will be within the 5th and 95th percentile. Those who are underweight will be below the 5th percentile. Those who are overweight those who are obese will be above the 95th percentile. So for the CDC growth charts, even though the indices are different, instead of weight and height, we use body mass index and age. Body mass index and age. But the range is the same. So children who have the body mass index for age below 5th percentile are regarded as underweight, 5th to 85th normal or healthy weight, 85th to 95th overweight, and greater than 95th obese. So this is an example of a CDC growth chart, and is usually gender based. So when you pick one of those charts, you need to find out if it's for boys or for girls, because if you use the one for boys for a girl, what you'll be getting will not be correct. Please don't follow the color, follow what is written on the chart, because sometimes people say pink is for girls and blue is for boys, but it doesn't follow. Like you can see, this chart is a pink chart, but its body mass index for age percentiles for boys. So I would like to ask, and I expect someone to unmute his or her microphone and answer. If we pick a boy who is 10-year-old boy, and after getting the height and weight and calculating the body mass index, the body mass index is 23. What category would you place that boy? What would be the nutritional status? 10-year-old, body mass index of 23. I need someone to unmute and answer.
Obese, ma'am, according to this chart.
According to this chart, because if you follow the vertical axis, 23 at age 10, the intersect is above the 95th percentile, and that means that child is obese. But remember, for adults, Somebody who has BMI of 23, how would you classify such an adult? Someone should answer now. An adult
And
who,
did you say BMI of 23?
for adults,
23
yeah,
is normal.
is normal. Okay. So for an adult, body mass index of 23 is normal, but for a child,
Everything is normal.
thank you, a child between age 2 and 20, you cannot rely on body mass index alone. So you need to plot the body mass index against the age, and that gives you the correct nutritional status. So you can work out the others later. I'm going to share these slides with you immediately after the lecture. So the prevalence of overweight and obesity have been increasing over the years. Unfortunately, they're increasing faster in developing countries compared to the developed world. Globally, it has nearly tripled between 1975 and now. As at 1975, the prevalence of overweight and obesity was less than 1%. It jumped to 8% in 1990 to 20% in 2022. And now, year 2025 is much higher than that 20%. The rate of increase is 30% higher in developing countries than developed countries for infants and young children. So we need to know that this problem is global, is increasing at higher rate in developing countries. It affects all age groups, not only the adults or adolescents, even children are suffering from overweight and obesity. So it's very important that we solve the problem at every level. This obesity is the most important public health problem, and we realized by year 2000 that there are more overweight than underweight people in the world, and it keeps increasing. So amongst the adults, from 1975 to 2016, it moved from 3% to 11% among men, 6 to 15 amongst women. These figures are not for you to memorize, but just to see the trend. In 2016, 39% of adults were overweight, 13% obese. 2022, 43%. This is global, not in Nigeria, please. 43% overweight and 16% obese. In Nigeria in 2024, the prevalence rates of overweight range from 20.3 to 35, and the pooled crude prevalence of obesity 8.1 to 22.2%. The causes of obesity include genetic causes, environmental, behavioral, and then what we need to realize is that usually there's an interplay between the gene, the environment, and behavior. So it's not enough to realize that this thing runs in the family. A lot can be done. The genes load the gun, but the lifestyle pulls the trigger. So if the lifestyle is against obesity, if somebody intentionally works against it, then the gene can lie fallow. It can be silent, can be silenced, and the environment can be controlled. Behavior can be controlled. So that means we can prevent obesity. We should not join people that say there's nothing we can do about it. It runs in the family. Just like other non-communicable diseases, there's a lot we can do about it. So proving further that obesity is genetic, we've discovered that weights of adopted children correlate better with biological parents. Body mass index of identical twins that are reared apart are similar. Monozygotic twins are more similar in fat deposition and weight than dizygotic twins. Sometimes, apart from this gene, it also runs in families because of habits. So we need to understand that. Then the environmental factors. In conditions where there are easy access to highly processed foods and drinks, people like that will be at higher risk. People who have more easier access to processed foods will be at higher risk. Then there is low cost of junk food, especially in the developed countries. And all these things they were talking about, mentioning as developed countries, they are here with us. People have access to junk food more than healthier options now. And then portion sizes are increasing everywhere in restaurants, even in the local restaurants. The portion sizes are increasing. The roads are not conducive for physical activities, especially in developing countries. The way you can move around in the US, you can't move around in a city in Nigeria. You are not confident. The roads are not very conducive, and many people will prefer not to walk or do exercise on the road. So that's a problem. It makes our environment to be obesogenic. Then the high level of technology is a problem because there are automated machines. People now use washing machine. So many children don't even know how to wash. And at the same time, they know how to watch TV. They don't know how to wash their clothes. So there are opportunities to be sedentary. There are also advertisements of junks on, we don't even talk about TV anymore. People are going about with TV on their phones. They can watch whatever they want to watch. They can sit down for hours to just surf the internet, and all this contributes to the obesity epidemic. Behavioral factors. Unhealthy diets, decreased energy expenditure, stressful lifestyle, inadequate sleep, and ignorance. So behavioral factors, these are the behavioral factors, but the ones that we're concerned about in this lecture is majorly on healthy diet and then decreased energy expenditure. So what is unhealthy diet? As habitual consumption of foods that can cause diseases, foods that cannot support health. And whenever we mention unhealthy diet, please, I want to plead with you this evening, make sure you touch all the food groups. Remember, I taught you food groups, and I spent some time to distinguish between food groups and nutrients. Please, today is a day of pleading with you. The day of exam, there will be no pleading. And the day of marking scripts, there will be no pleading. Please make sure you understand the difference. And anytime we discuss diet, whether you're talking with a friend or you are speaking on TV or you are answering a question for exam, touch all the food groups when you are discussing diet. Don't just pick the ones you like and forget the rest. Talk about fruits, vegetables, roots, tubers, cereals, fat, water. Talk about all the food groups. Remember the meat group, the legume. Just say something about each food group anytime you are discussing diet. That will show that you have been to this class. That will show that you understand what diet is. Let me remind you, diet is the combination of foods that are eaten habitually. So if it's the combination of foods, then you should talk about the different food groups and then explain what you mean by the kind of diet you want to describe. So now let's talk about an healthy diet. What does it mean to eat unhealthy? It means habitual combination of foods that will not do the body any good in a layman's language. So starting from fruits, it means decrease in intake of fruits, vegetables, and other high fiber foods, increase in consumption of refined grains, sugar, simple sugars, low consumption of roots and tubers, increase in intake of animal fats and hydrogenated oil, increased use of fast foods that are high in calories, salt, and sugar, low consumption of foods that are rich in vitamins, minerals, and other healthy micronutrients, increased intake of carbonated drinks, coffee, tea, improper preparation. So if we've talked about the food groups now, the substance, let's talk about preparation, because preparation and even the consumption, the amount consumed, even the timing, all of this will affect diet. So improper preparation of foods, most people fry their foods. That's, even if you pick a food item that is healthy and you decide to prepare it in an improper way, like frying or grilling, any method that makes you expose food to very high temperature, that's a bad method of preparation, and it turns that food to bad, to unhealthy. So even if the food is as good as plantain and you choose to fry it, especially when you fry with hydrogenated oil, it turns it to bad. The excessive consumption of foods, even if you are eating something healthy like beans, but you eat in excess amount, you eat excess, the excess will be stored as fat. Increased risk among children. Many times children with food insecurity, and even children that have access to food, many times you will say, oh, these children, they is just that do people usually say? They will say, oh, if they are children, they will burn the fat, leave them alone. But unfortunately, 80% of children who are obese will continue as obese adults. Then decrease energy expenditure. We've talked about diet now. Let's talk about decreased energy expenditure. We all know that many people are more sedentary than in the past. So what we just need is different examples to explain our point. High proportion of children and adults are sedentary. The social value and traditions regarding physical exercise are disappearing. Many people that live in high-rise houses would not even allow their children to go downstairs to play with others. They would rather sit with a TV and watch TV. There is a lot of restriction because of the environment. Non-availability of public places suitable for physical activity. I just talked about walking a while ago, that even for people that are willing to walk, they are afraid to walk along our roads because they're not safe. And some roads don't even have walking path, no cycling path. Meanwhile, the cost of using a gym is too high for many people. There's modernization of life that reduce physical activity. So we need to know that the things that tend to make us more comfortable are the same things that are fueling obesity nowadays. Therefore, anybody that wants to prevent this condition has to be intentional to move the body intentionally, do things for yourself, intentionally get engaged in planned physical activity. That's what we call exercise. Sometimes you may even need to park your automobile. I remember when I was trying to lose weight some 15 years ago, I'll park my car and take BRT bus. People will be asking, what Dr. Olatona, what happened to your car? There's nothing wrong with my car. But I just felt that a serious situation demanded serious approach. And I lost 20 kilograms of body weight without going to any gym. So we all need to realize what we're facing and approach it with the best ammunition possible. So if we don't do anything, if we don't intentionally reduce weight, whether as individuals or reduce obesity in the country, what happens? There are effects on health and well-being immediately, and there are long-term effects. So the immediate effects, let's assume that children and we're talking about children and adolescents, those who are obese as children and adolescents, 80% of them will continue as obese adults. And their risk for these diseases will increase in later life, whether cardiovascular disease or diabetes, bone and joint problems, sleep apnea, social and psychological problems, all these problems these people, adolescents and children will experience. An average adolescent who is fat is ashamed, is not happy, and is trying to solve the problem individually because the friends will make jest of them, they will call them names, and this will result in psychological problems. So it's a serious problem that needs to be solved. And then in adults, some of those problems continue, like hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, and others may even show up like cancer, kidney stones, respiratory problems, osteoporosis, flat feet, chronic fatigue, tiredness, premature aging, all kinds of problems. So you can see that many non-communicable diseases are linked with obesity. So what do? We go back to the causes. There's nothing we can do about the gene, so we drop that and concentrate on the environment and the behavioral methods to deal with it. For environment, we tackle everything that makes our environment to be obesogenic. That cannot be done at individual level, so we need the political will, we need advocacy even for those who are in government, who are at the helm of affairs. For us as healthcare providers, public health specialists, our role will be advocacy. You can even in the estate where you live, you can advocate for a safe environment. For example, where I live now, I don't need any gym. It will be a waste of money or time to be searching for a gym because I can do exercise at any time of the day. So you can also advocate to have a good environment wherever you have the opportunity to do that. But most importantly, we're talking about the population in this course. We're talking about the nation, the community. And then we are also concerned about people's behavior. We can intervene at that level too. Apart from advocacy to improve our environment, we can educate people and encourage them to adopt healthy behaviors. The king of them all is healthy eating, followed by adequate physical activities, stress management, and adequate sleep. So if we are talking about the environment, is a multi-sectorial approach, starting from families. Communities can invest in parks and sidewalks. People can also use schools and working places. I remember there was a time we were discussing having a gym in Lutz or College of Medicine. I'm not sure if that has happened, but that some doctors were thinking of that. So in the place where you work to, you can advocate for a gym. Then faith-based institution, government agencies, media, food, and these are all these sectors can do something to improve the environment. And then governments can make policies that can be against obesity. Policies for mechanized farming will improve food and make locally available foods local foods to be available. Policies that will control importation of highly processed foods. So we need such policies that will ban ban processed foods or limit them so that the locally produced foods can be consumed. We need policies that can favor facilities for sports, providing walkways on the streets, lifestyle education programs or many people are very ignorant. I go to different organizations and faith-based organizations or corporates. I go to corporate organizations, faith-based organizations, and after speaking and it's time for questions and answers, I'm usually amazed at the level of ignorance out there. So that means people need a lot of education to improve their diet, to improve their lifestyle. Many people. The level of ignorance is very high. So lifestyle education is important. Explaining the risk associated with obesity. Some people don't even know that there's any risk. They just feel that somebody who is obese has money and is living a good life. So they need to learn. When we talk about lifestyle education, what do we teach people? We need to teach them healthful and unhealthful foods items, what kind of foods are actually healthful, what are not healthful. We need to teach people mindful eating. Many people, including some doctors, they don't even pay attention to what they eat. It's bad. So people must learn mindful eating, timing of eating, amount, type, effect of the kind of food being eaten, food combination. We just must learn mindful eating. And then for those who eat out, to avoid appetizer and dessert in restaurants, learning to start with small changes. Sometimes all that you need to do to prevent obesity or to reduce your body weight is just to leave a spoon in the plate. Whatever you are used to, you just leave one spoon. When you get used to that amount, then you reduce it by one spoon again and celebrate the changes. If all you can achieve is weighing the same thing for 1 or 2 weeks, is an achievement compared to increasing as an adult. Ideally, the weight that people reach at 21 or 23 should be the ideal weight. So whatever you have gained after 23 years is your excess weight and you need to shed it. I became very excited when I went back to what I weighed at 26. So that's about 27 years ago. What I was weighing is what I weigh now, and I'm excited at it. So if I achieved it, I believe that anybody can achieve it with the right knowledge and the willpower to work on it. It's good to teach people to resist temptation to always clean the plate. You remember when we were growing up, we were taught not to waste food. Now we need to relearn and teach ourselves that it's better for that food to go to the waste can than to be in our bodies. So if you are satisfied, then stop eating. Physical education in schools is also very important, and then we need to understand food labeling, because you can't stop some people. They will still buy packaged foods. Therefore, they should understand what is on the label so that even if they are choosing packaged foods, they can choose the better alternatives. So let's go to healthy diet. This is the king of all the behavior. If you want people to change their behavior, then what should they do? Healthy diet is the most important measure for good health because the foods we eat form the building block of the body. Healthy diet does not involve only the foods that you are choosing. It also means using the right cooking methods like boiling with a little water or baking. and consuming moderate amount of food. So, in a nutshell, anybody who wants to eat healthy must reduce refined grains and other foods that are high in refined carbohydrates because this fuel obesity. We must increase the amount of vegetables and then consume the recommended amount of fruits, whole grains, and legumes. The recommended amount of fruit is 2 servings. Vegetables should be at least 3 servings. All grains will depend on whether such a person still consumes roots and tubers on the same day. But generally, all grains are just like roots and tubers because they are very high in carbohydrates. They're safe in moderate amounts, so maybe just about 4 servings in a day for an average adult. Then legumes, is a good idea to add some legumes to grains anytime one is eating grains, and then to eat a wide variety of foods from all food groups because there is no single food that contains all the nutrients needed. So people should be taught. These are basic things that everybody should know, not necessarily master students. Everybody should know that it's good to eat fruits and vegetables, to touch all these food groups in a day, and to avoid the bad ones like sweeteners, condiments. They're not meant to be used. So since they are not meant to be used, I mean, then the body doesn't need them. Then they should be used sparingly, if at all. Meats and meat products should be consumed in low amounts. Some people argue and say, what about chicken? What about turkey? Yes, they are better than red meat, they are better than beef, but at the same time, the recommendation is that every item in that meat group should be limited, including shrimps, crayfish, snail, they should be limited. So choose fish if you want to manage weight. Choose fish rather than meat. Avoid sweeteners. Limit condiments. Avoid beverages. This is my pyramid. My pyramid steps to a healthier you. So if you want to educate people on how to eat, this pyramid is a very good illustration. You can see that the grains form the largest group, and like I said, because in the Western world, they're not very used to roots and tubers. So we classify roots and tubers along with grains. The vegetable is a separate group, and the way we are supposed to eat daily, this vegetable group should be as much as the grains. In simple terms, if you think about how much rice you eat daily, for those who eat rice daily, the amount of vegetable you eat daily should be close to that amount of rice. That's the simple way I can explain it to Nigerians. If I were in South Africa, I would say the amount of corn they eat, should be similar to the amount of vegetables. So they should reduce the corn and increase the vegetable. We should increase the vegetable, reduce the rice. So this is how much vegetable, that's my emphasis. The amount of vegetable, especially adults, amount of vegetables we eat daily should be close to the amount of grains. Is that wide? You can see. And then look at the fruits. What can you say about the fruits in relation to the vegetables? Somebody should please say something. What's your observation?
2/3.
2/3 of the quantity of vegetables. Thank you very much.
Vegetable.
Yeah. So that's you can see that this pyramid is in sync with the World Health Organization recommendation that the amount of fruits we eat daily should be just 2 servings. 1 serving is equivalent to one small apple, one orange, half cup of chunked fruits. That's how much fruits we need. It's not right for anybody to take a whole bowl of oranges or a bunch of banana. No, just two small bananas, two fingers of banana. Or if it's big, then just one. If the apple is big, then just one. That's the recommendation for fruits. Otherwise, the fruits will also turn to unhealthy in the body if we consume too much fruit, because remember that fruits contain glucose and fructose, which are simple sugars. And if too much simple sugars are consumed, that will not be healthy. It will still go back, it will lead to obesity, especially if they're not consumed as whole fruits, if they're juiced. That means the fiber has been removed, the shaft, that people call it shaft, but the right word is the fiber has been removed, and you are just drinking the juice. In that wise, it should not be more than 2 servings. Okay, can you look at the next section? That is the oil section, that yellow section. What's the observation? What's the observation about the yellow section?
It's needed in lower quantity,
Thank
or
you. Very
because it's
little.
cinema.
Thank you. So you
It's
can see
very
there's a very thin section, very thin. That's why we are asked to avoid meat, because of the fat in meat. And then when to also limit cooking oil. The truth is that nobody needs extra oil. It's just like salt. The amount of oil that is needed is already in foods, is contained in the foods. If we will eat them, the seeds have oil. There's oil in corn. There's oil in oats. There's oil in many foods. Just that they exist in little amount, and that's the little the body needs. So if we already have enough in the foods we eat, when people want to cook, they should be conscious that we don't really need the oil. We just need a little of that oil to transport the fat soluble vitamins and all of that. So there's no reason why people should be cooking with too much oil. Then the mix section. The mix section is wide, almost as wide as grains. So how many people drink milk like this every day? The amount of milk you drink is as much as the rice, the yam, and other I other foods that are high in carbohydrate that you eat. Most people don't. So what is the way out? We need to encourage people to take milk, especially the low fat milk. Low fat milk. And for people that can't tolerate lactose, we need to educate them to avoid the regular milk and take plant-based milk. Most people don't drink milk like this, so they need to eat beans and get some calcium. They need more vegetables to get some calcium from vegetables. We need to educate them to, if they cannot afford the regular milk, to make milk at home, their homemade milk, like oat milk, banana milk, rice milk, tiger nut milk, and others. So a lot of education is needed. And then the meat group. This meat group is classified along with beans, and meat group does not necessarily mean that you must eat meat. In that group, there's fish, there's beef, turkey, chicken, shrimps, lamb, egg, anything from animal origin is classified in this group. And beans is classified along because it contains a relatively high amount of protein compared to several indigenous foods. Can you see the person that is climbing this pyramid? So it shows that the person is also doing exercise as he's eating. So that's why we always talk about physical activities in nutrition class. If you eat the amount of food your body needs and you don't do any exercise, it will turn to fat. If you want to use only food to regulate body fat, you will not eat enough to supply enough micronutrients. That's the risk. So the amount of food your body really needs also demands that you must do exercise. Whether you are slim or not, that amount of food demands that you must get engaged in exercise. And when we say exercise or physical activities, doesn't necessarily mean that you must register in a gym. Just make sure that you move around, move your body, and make it at least 30 minutes a day of moderate exercise. So apart from the 30 minutes moderate exercise, do things for yourself, move around, because that moderate exercise is just to maintain health. For those who are already obese, those who are trying to lose weight, then you need to do more than that. I try to do more than 30 minutes daily because I have a tendency to store fat if I'm not careful. So water, I think it's a good time to take water break. Water break, please. Water, most people need about 3 liters daily, and if it's a sunny day in the tropical region, then more than 3 liters. So water should be taken 30 minutes before a meal so that the meal will digest properly. The risk of not drinking enough or drinking water in a wrong way is that the food will not digest properly, and if it becomes rancid, it will affect the body, makes the body to be acidic, and that's a risk for obesity. If the food doesn't digest properly, there's a way the body cooperates to shed unnecessary body fat if there's smooth digestion. Water is also important to remove the waste and to make the kidneys to function properly. Fruits and vegetables, I've said a lot about this in passing, provide vitamins, minerals, and roughages. Sometimes people call obesity a kind of protest by the body, that the body is protesting, is a sign that the body is weeping. But if fruits and vegetables are consumed in adequate amount, there's vitamins, minerals, roughages, the body is working smoothly, and it's not necessary to store fat and store toxins. The immunity will improve, and this will be important in maintaining the appropriate body weight. Fruits and vegetables should be eaten, especially fruits, at least 30 minutes before a major meal. It's always a good idea to eat foods separately. Then the roots and tubers, they're not bad. And some people have incriminated this group as responsible for obesity, but Irish potato has simple sugars, so it's better to take sweet potato if somebody is trying to lose weight. I remember when I was trying to lose weight, like I said, some 15, 14 years ago, I ate sweet potato every day for 2 years, and it really helped me. Anything I knew that was helpful, I just slammed on it and practiced it religiously. Cucumber, garden egg, sweet potato. So if there's somebody that is listening to me that wants to lose weight, I've given you some tips. Then grains, legumes, and nuts. This group is also important. They provide significant amount of protein, fiber, and energy. Because of the fiber, they also aid proper bowel function. 50% of grains should be taken as whole grains. For people that really mean business, that you want to maintain your health, 50% is the recommendation. But if you want to lose weight, it's better to take your grains as whole grains and just eat refined grains occasionally. Make an egg. Milk contains fats and therefore should be limited in amount, or better still, to take low fat or skimmed milk. And it's a good idea to avoid more than 3 eggs in a week. 2 to 3 eggs, and it's better boiled than fried. So anybody who wants to be healthy or reduce weight should reduce animal products. Meat and the alternatives. First and foremost, any processed meat or processed fish should be avoided. And then meat can be eliminated from the diet of an adult. But if you don't want to eliminate it, then boil the meat rather than fry, because that frying is just making it worse. And the fishes with scales are better than the fatty fishes. The fatty fishes tend to store poison and the fat to be harmful to somebody who is trying to lose weight. The fatty fishes are not the best. Fat and oil. I've said some things about this group. They provide a lot of calories, so it's better to use little oil to cook and avoid the oil that is not safe. Most brands that are packaged as vegetable oil are actually hydrogenated oil that are not safe. Most plant-based oil are good, and most animal-based oil are not good, except fish oil. So the recommendation for palm oil is to use a little. It's safe, but that doesn't mean that it should be taken in large amount because it's relatively safe. The saturated fats in the animal fat should be avoided or limited because it increases cholesterol. Yeah, some years ago, people were saying we should avoid saturated fat, but scientists have also come back to say we need a little of this saturated fat, even to maintain heart health. So this the summary is to take a little, not overindulge in any of them. And like I said, sweeteners, condiments, and beverages are not compulsory to exist. No human being needs them to exist. So the way out is to limit them. Since they are not compulsory, then they should be limited. Yeah. But many people will still find it difficult to avoid sweetener. They are the ones that will be arguing, okay, if I don't use sugar, what about honey? Yeah, even if somebody wants to use honey, that honey should still be limited because it contains fructose as well as glucose. And research has revealed over time that excess glucose, excess sucrose, all these monosaccharides and disaccharides, they will lead to chronic diseases eventually. Some people run to chemical sweeteners because they don't want to be fat. So they said, I don't want to drink carbonated soft drinks, it contains sugar. Then they go for diet drinks. What is inside the diet drinks that makes it sweet? Anybody you want to answer? What makes diet drinks sweet?
Saccharin
So what is that? What is
is a form of sugar. Maybe artificial sugar, something like that.
okay? It's called chemical sweetener. Chemical sweetener. Thank you. So these chemical sweeteners, they cause rebound appetites. Anybody who can explain rebound appetites? Rebound appetites. Okay, so that means somebody is trying to limit calories, so he doesn't take carbonated soft drinks. He wants to avoid it, but because he's now taking sweetener, he now begins to get very hungry. The appetite is increased, he's getting hungry, and then he eats more. What will happen eventually? He will consume more food that will give him more calorie, and he will still be obese. So if you know anybody who is drinking diets, taking diet drinks, explain the mechanism to the person. It's a waste of time. And then it's been discovered that the sweeteners also cause cancer in rats. So everybody should reduce salt intake, reduce condiments, and of course avoid alcohol. Alcohol is a risk for obesity. Alcohol is a risk for obesity. I remember a research I conducted a while ago. The only factor we found amongst undergraduates that was responsible for obesity is alcohol consumption. All the other factors that have been known in literature were not even significant in that population. So other things to know about diet: eat more raw foods, eat small portions regularly, avoid overeating, avoid eating less than 2 hours before bedtime, physical activity and exercise. Remember behavioral factors, we talked about diet, then physical activity. So what do we say about physical activities? Children need at least 1 hour, adults 30 minutes. This will increase metabolism to use the food for energy. So a little details about exercise. We need to start and increase gradually, otherwise it will not achieve the desired effects if we just stay on the same amount of time. Exercise for the same duration every day, you are not increasing, you would achieve less. And then we also need to know that some people ask questions. They will ask that, okay, I do my household chores, is that not enough as exercise? It's a form of physical activity, but many times it can even be stressful. It won't count as exercise. So it's a form of physical activity. It supports exercise, but exercise is still important because it has its own advantages. So it's good to know that walking, you lose 4 kilocalories per minute, but if you jog, 6 kilocalories, running 8 kilocalories, and if you cannot get the 30 minutes per day at once, it can be divided into 3 parts of 10 minutes each, and it will still be effective. So other aspects of healthy lifestyle are very important under that behavior, like resting well. Did you know that people who sleep well lose weight more than those who don't sleep well? Okay, because during that sleep, some hormones are released into the body that will make somebody to lose weight. Sleep also increases leptin and decreases ghrelin, the hunger hormone. Leptin is the satiety hormone. So when you sleep well, you don't feel hungry, you feel satisfied, and you don't reach out for food in the middle of the night. You are sleeping. For people that don't sleep well, the hunger hormone is high and they are hungry. So that's the effect of sleep. It's also important to manage stress because stress increases cortisol, and that hormone will make the body to increase in weight, to store fat, to store sugar as fat. Stress generally can make somebody to be fat, and some people it makes them to be slim. Just know that there's an hormone called cortisol, and it's one of the hormones released by stress, and that cortisol can lead to obesity. So it's good to avoid alcohol, it's good to avoid other dangerous substances and behavior. Conclusion. Is there any question before I conclude? Does anybody have any question? Okay. So encourage
Yes.
people. Okay, go
Uh,
ahead. Go ahead.
okay. The non-alcoholic wine, which food group is best do they belong to? Is it more beverages or uh, which food group do they belong to
Okay.
anyway?
Okay. So the non-alcoholic wine is like a fruit drink,
Okay.
or you can call it a beverage because they may not have the functions of fruits juice, so to say. Some of them are also packaged with some things to preserve them and all of that. So I would not classify them as fruits or natural fruit juice. So you can classify them with beverages. Yeah. Any other concern?
Okay. Yeah. My other second question. This relates to people of high socioeconomic status who engage in good nutrition. And what you mean by good nutrition, diverse, adequate, eating all the food groups. And at the same time, they engage in unhealthy behaviors like smoking cigarettes. What is the likely chance of them coming up cancer compared to who smoke and not engage in good nutrition?
Okay. I remember that the topic we're dealing with here is obesity, and I've tried as much as possible to limit myself to that. But it's also a good idea to talk about the other non-communicable diseases. So for people who, okay, so so since you've asked the question, we can as well just mention the causative factors or the risk factors for non-communicable diseases. So the first one is alcohol consumption, cigarette smoking, unhealthy diet, and inadequate physical activity. So those are the four metabolic risk factors for non-communicable diseases. So people who indulge in smoking, even if they eat healthy, would eventually have a high risk for any of those non-communicable diseases. So if you are talking about smoking in particular, that person may be at higher risk for chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases and any other cancer. So that's pretty straightforward. But if you want to know the relationship between cigarette smoking and obesity, is actually a paradox. Cigarette smoking would make people to lose weight, but they would be at higher risk of no other non-communicable diseases outside obesity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we can call it a day. Encourage people to drink a lot of water throughout the day. Eat a wide variety of foods. Eat at least 3 servings of vegetables and at most 2 servings of fruits. To choose whole grains, legumes, and nuts. Reduce animal foods, pastries, and unhealthful drinks. Balance intake with expenditure of energy. Adequate to sleep well. That's 7 to 8 hours. I hope EMPA students can get 7 hours of sleep. So people should they should practice all the behavioral changes, avoid the risk of obesity by adopting the correct behavior. That's behavior individuals can handle that, and then we can encourage the government to put up policies that favor the environment, encourage the leaders of our communities to do things that favor the environment. So, because those are the two areas where we can intervene since we can't do anything about the gene. Thank you for being a part of this class. Have a nice evening. Bye.